Hey guys, today's video is on transitive and intransitive verbs. Now, this says here to have an object or to not have an object. Um, just, you probably recognize that word object from your knowledge of direct objects before. Our section isn't actually until after this, but it does help to try to remember what an object is as we go through this, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So to have an object or to not have an object. Transitive and intransitive verbs. Now, some of the things you'll learn to is distinguish between both, transitive and intransitive, and also you'll be able to write sentences that incorporate both transitive and intransitive verbs. Now, you want to know what transitive is. Well, if you look at the word transitive, you see this prefix of trans, okay? And that can always kind of help you. So think about a couple of more words, like transoceanic. And as you see here, you see the voyage of the Titanic. It was supposed to make it across the ocean from one side to the other. You see this word transversal. Now that's what that is right there. And if you see that, that's a line that goes across or through two parallel lines. And then you see trans as in transcontinental, and I'm pretty sure you could probably guess the railroad was meant to go across the entire continent. Okay? So the idea with this word is that it's a verb that goes across or to something else. It points to something, whether it's the other side, another line, but specifically for transitive verbs, it actually points to another word. Okay? So it says they must be action verbs, okay? And then they must direct action toward or to something or someone, okay? So it's a verb, and as you know, most verbs are action, okay? And I guess that you'd say if there's something that receives that action, okay, so the action is going to or across the sentence to something else. Now, here's the key. It says towards something or someone. So what kind of words would it have to be? It would have to be a noun, okay, or a pronoun, I guess. Here's an example. The boy licked the frozen flagpole. Well, we have to find our verb. You always find your verb first, okay? Well, that would be licked. Now, licked is the action. What is he licking? What's receiving the action? Well, if you look at the picture here, it's this thing, the flagpole, okay? So licked flagpole. Now, you probably remember this, but a way that you can figure this out is to ask what. Okay? You can check if it is transitive, if it's an action verb, by asking what. Here's a sentence. EB played the bongos. If you didn't know, EB stands for Easter Bunny. But what's the verb here? Well, that would be played. Now, you get to ask your question, played what? Well, guys, we have it right here. The bongos. Now, here's the thing. You look at the word bongos, is that a person or a thing? Is that a noun? Yes, it is. Well, because you could answer that question, played what, that means the bongos received the action. Okay? That means that's the direct object. Because it received the action of the verb. So yes, that would be, you guessed it, transitive. So played what? Bongos. For example, we always do the sentence, Petey kicked the ball. Kicked what? The ball, because the ball receives that kick. Okay? Now, does that mean that all action verbs are transitive? Well, you might fall into the trap. Mulan fought bravely. Fought is an action verb, right? Fought what? Bravely. No. Bravely, when you say that, that's actually describing how she fought. So bravely is not a person or a place, so that can't be it. So this would be not transitive or intransitive. Okay? I think sometimes you guys fall into this trap. King Arthur ruled wisely. When you say ruled what? Wisely? No, because that's actually saying how. Is that a person or a thing? No. Robin Hood shot effortlessly. This is another one where it's describing. So there's really nothing that receives that action. If we said shot the arrow, then there would be something that received the action. If we said ruled the kingdom, there would be something that received the action. If we said fought the enemy, then there would be something that received the action. In each of these cases, they are all intransitive. Okay? Let's move on here. Specifically, intransitive verbs, they can be action or linking. Okay? Because that's really the most important thing you have to know. Anytime you see a linking verb, there's no possible way it can be transitive. Because how can you receive action if there's no action, right? So linking verbs can be both. Intransitive verbs can be both, action or linking. Anytime you see a linking, you automatically know it's intransitive, okay? Also, it could still be action, but not direct action towards something else. Let's go back to this. All of these are action verbs, right? Fought, ruled, shot. But because there's no specific thing, that would also make them intransitive. Okay, let's go to the next one here. So here are some examples. Baloo danced. See him dancing? Now, if I say dance the salsa, well, that would be what he's dancing. You know, that would receive the action. But if you ever have something like Mr. Fincham sang, or Baloo danced, or the student typed, where there's nothing else, it's automatically going to be intransitive if it's an action verb. What about this one? Buzz flew through the sky. Yes, there are words afterwards, but it's not receiving any kind of action. Stitch was awesome. And this is an example of a linking verb, so we know it's intransitive. Alright, some can be both. Just depends on how they're worded. For example, Pumbaa sang Hakuna Matata. Okay, here's our verb, sang. First off, is that an action verb? Looks like he's pretty much doing an action to me, right? How about this? Sang what? Hakuna Matata. That's the name of a song, so yes, you guessed it. That would be transitive. While Pumbaa sang what loudly? Well, guess what? That is not a thing. This is a thing. This is not. Noun. This is not a noun. This is actually an adverb because it's describing. That makes this one intransitive. So you see how the same verb, sang, both action, can be transitive and intransitive. Okay? Now, just to sum this up here, transitive verbs express action. Okay? So it's always an action verb toward a word in the predicate. If it helps you to think what receives that action, then that's a good way to think about it, okay? The word to which the action is directed is the object. Remember, kicked the ball. Mr. Fincham kicked the ball. I am kicking, that's an action. And since I'm actually kicking something, that makes it transitive. Okay? Now, when we have intransitive verbs, they do not have an object. Okay? So, the students talked or spoke. We're not saying spoke a memory verse, right? Or spoke their Christmas recession. So basically, if there's no receiver of that action, it's intransitive. Also, anytime you have one of these guys, a linking verb, you know it's always intransitive. Okay? So, the number one thing I say is make sure it's an action verb. All the time I have students that say, well, it answered what? But then I said, what kind of verb is it? Half the time it's a linking verb. So always make sure it's an action, and then you can find if it's, actually has a direct object. All right, have a good night, and maybe somebody will get a piece of the pie.